Welcome to Traveling with Glenn, a series of bicycle touring adventures designed to educate, to entertain, and to inspire the viewer. I am your host, Glenn Davis. Today's adventure is Rapid City, South Dakota to Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I began my solo bicycle trip from Rapid City, South Dakota to Victoria, British Columbia in early July. The second leg of the trip was a 6-month tour of Australia. The third leg, a 5.5-week stopover in Hawaii. The fourth and final leg climaxed with the Pacific Crest Tour from Canada to Southern California by way of the Cascade Range and Sierra Nevada mountains. The entire solo bicycle tour took 16 months, more than 20,000 air miles in 11 flights, and 9,000 miles of bicycling. The long adventure began with my father driving me to Bradley International Airport. After we carried my 21-speed Cannondale road touring bicycle and packs into the terminal, my father was fighting back tears. Dad never liked to see me leave on these long trips because of the separation and because he worried about me. But after a dozen years of my adventures, I guess he knew that by this time I could take care of myself. Although we never talked about it, I'm sure that my father didn't approve of his only child living the life of an adventuring bachelor. As we hugged and said our goodbyes in the terminal, neither of us could have known that this would be the last time we'd see each other. 9 months later, while in Australia, I received word that my father had died. After landing in Rapid City in southwest South Dakota, I spent a day in the second most populous city in the state before cycling east for 78 miles to Badlands National Park. Badlands became a national monument in 1939 and a national park in 1978. It occupies an area of 379 square miles. Badlands is defined as a region where erosion has carved soft rocks into intricate and fantastic shapes, where vegetation is scanty. About 34 million years ago, this land was a broad, marshy plain crossed by slow-moving streams. In time, volcanoes to the west and southwest ejected huge volumes of ash into the atmosphere. Carried eastward by the wind, the ash fell and became the whitish layer near the top of the Badlands formations. Eventually, the climate became drier as rainfall diminished, and grass, able to grow with little water, invaded and occupied the remnants of forests and swamps. Present annual precipitation is 16 inches, just enough to sustain the grass. A prickly pear cactus. Grass eaters, including bison, pronghorns, and mule deer, moved in. Badlands is home to prairie dogs, jackrabbits, cottontails, porcupines, chipmunks, badgers, and coyotes. This section of Badlands National Park looks much like painted desert in Arizona. We are in the Black Hills National Forest, an area covering 1.2 million acres. The Black Hills is a small mountain range in western South Dakota and eastern Wyoming. The highest peak is 7,244 feet. The Sioux call the Black Hills Pahasapa. These are Rocky Mountain goats. The mountain goat is actually a mountain antelope and not a true goat. The male is a billy and the female is a nanny. They have beards, short tails, and black horns which grow from 6 to 11 inches. Rocky Mountain goats have double coats of dense underwool and a long outer coat of hair. They can withstand temperatures to 50 degrees below zero and winds to 100 miles per hour. Billies often weigh less than 180 pounds, but can weigh up to 300 pounds. The body length of an adult is from 47 to 70 inches. Mount Rushmore evokes a wide range of reactions, varying from pride in one's country, inspiring and breathtaking, to bizarre, surreal, and absurd. Seeing the busts of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln carved into Mount Rushmore in the Black Hills is an experience that, upon first sight, no one can ever forget, no matter how it affects that person. Mount Rushmore National Memorial is a 1,278-acre preserve administered by the National Park Service. The idea for the memorial was conceived in 1923. The first drilling and blasting took place in 1927. Over a span of 14 years, thousands of laborers working with dynamite and drills removed 500,000 tons of granite from the mountain. The creator of this work was Gutzon Borglum, an internationally famous American sculptor who desired to leave a lasting memorial to these 4 American presidents, and in a larger sense, to create a permanent landmark symbolizing the greatness of America. The sculpture is 365 feet wide by 160 feet, from the tops of the heads to the lowest point of the coats. Washington's face is 60 feet long. His nose is 20 feet long, and his eyes are 11 feet wide. Roosevelt's mustache is 20 feet long, and Lincoln's mole is 16 inches in diameter. A bumblebee gathers pollen from a thistle. Custer State Park is home to 1,500 free-roaming bison on its 71,000 acres. Newborns weigh about 65 pounds and are reddish-brown, in contrast with chocolate-brown adults. Although commonly known as a buffalo, the American bison is only distantly related to the true buffalo. A mature bison will measure 7 to 11 feet long, stand 5 to 6 feet high at the shoulder, and weigh 700 to 2,200 pounds. The heaviest wild bull bison weighed 2,800 pounds. The bison can run up to 35 miles per hour and live for about 12 to 20 years in the wild. In the Black Hills, Needles Highway passes through cathedral spires, a series of eroded granite pillars, towers, and spires, some reaching 500 feet high. This formation is called Needle Eye. East Spearfish Creek in the Black Hills National Forest. The Black Hills is popular with outdoor enthusiasts. In addition to tourism, cattle ranching, and farming, are important to the economy of South Dakota. Custer's expedition. On July 20th, 1874, General George A. Custer, leading the first official government exploring expedition in the Black Hills, crossed at this point en route to the Black Hills to investigate rumors of gold in paying quantities. The trail in the foreground was left by his party, which consisted of 110 wagons, 2,000 animals, and 1,000 men, including engineers, scouts, geologists, and practical miners. This expedition was in violation of the Treaty of 1868, which guaranteed the region to the Indians. In 1875, after government negotiations with the Indians to purchase the Black Hills broke down, miners and settlers poured into this area. The treaty referred to is the Fort Laramie Treaty, which established the Great Sioux Reservation and exempted the Black Hills from white settlement forever. When the United States government took back the Black Hills, its action touched off the Black Hills, or Great Sioux War of 1876, the last major Indian war on the Great Plains. In 1889, the government reassigned the Lakota Sioux against their wishes to 5 smaller reservations. The Belle Fourche River begins its 290-mile-long course in northeastern Wyoming and flows to the Cheyenne River in western South Dakota. Belle Fourche is French for beautiful fork. Native Americans used the roots of the arrowleaf balsam root for medicinal purposes. We see prairie grass, farms, and rolling hills in eastern Wyoming. As it comes into view, the traveler is struck by the extraordinary sight of a column of rock rising hundreds of feet above a forest of ponderosa pines. Devil's Tower in northeastern Wyoming became the country's first national monument in 1906. Devil's Tower was created 60 million years ago when volcanic activity forced a small quantity of magma or molten rock to a point just below the Earth's surface. As the magma cooled, cracks developed, and the rock fractured into multi-sided columns. Over millions of years, the Belle Fourche River washed away the soft sedimentary rock, covering the much harder volcanic rock. Today, Devil's Tower National Monument includes 1,347 acres. The tower rises 867 feet from its base, measures 1,000 feet in diameter, stands 1,267 feet above Belle Fourche River, and is 5,117 feet above sea level. More than 5,000 climbers come to Devil's Tower every year to scale the massive columns, which have from 3 to 8 sides and are up to 12 feet wide. On July 4th, 1893, a gala event took place in front of 1,000 avid spectators as local ranchers William Rogers and Willard Ripley became the first men to climb Devil's Tower. After the initial celebration, the tower became a popular place for the annual 4th of July picnic, made up of local ranchers and their families who seldom saw each other the rest of the year. At the 1895 event, Mrs. Rogers became the first woman to scale the tower. Several scenes from the 1977 movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind were filmed at Devil's Tower, resulting in a large increase in visitors. Wide open prairie and farmland. Beginning in the Bighorn Mountains of central Wyoming, Powder River flows northward for 375 miles to the Yellowstone River in Montana. The Bighorn Mountains of northern Wyoming and southern Montana are a 200-mile-long range rising from the Great Plains. The highest summit is Cloud Peak, elevation 13,175 feet. Powder River Pass, elevation 9,666 feet, is located in Bighorn National Forest, established in 1897. The National Forest is about 80 miles long by 30 miles wide. Also in Bighorn National Forest is Meadowlark Lake, elevation 8,300 feet. Ten Sleep Creek flows through Ten Sleep Canyon, a series of uniquely sculpted limestone cliffs which tower above U.S. Route 16 in Bighorn National Forest. These Badlands Buttes, which rise above the prairie and No Wood Creek, remind me of Red Rock Country near Sedona, Arizona. The landscape is a painted desert like Badlands. This picture shows sagebrush in the foreground, Badlands, and the distant Bighorn Mountains. The Bighorn River flows northward from central Wyoming to the Yellowstone River in Montana for 461 miles. The next 8 pictures are of Shoshone National Forest, named after the Shoshone Indians. Established in 1891, Shoshone National Forests covers 3,800 square miles. As I bicycle Chief Joseph Scenic Highway, I am viewing the Rattlesnake Mountains as they rise abruptly from the prairie. I enjoyed this wonderful view of the Absaroka Range, a 150-mile-long by 75-mile-wide sub-range of the Rocky Mountains. This is a look at Sunlight Basin and Chief Joseph Scenic Highway from the top of Dead Indian Pass, elevation 8,071 feet. The descent on rough gravel road requires expert bike handling skill. Another spectacular scene in the National Forest. This formation, showing horizontal bands of sandstone, is called the Reef. A look at Table Mountain, elevation 8,753 feet. Lake Creek. We conclude our ride along Chief Joseph Scenic Highway through Shoshone National Forest with a look at the Absaroka Range, whose highest mountain is Francis Peak, elevation 13,153 feet elevation. The range was named after the Absaroka Indians, who call it Children of the Large-Beaked Bird, a reference to the Crow Indians, whose name for it means Pointed Mountains. Yellowstone, established in 1872, is our first national park, and the first national park in the world. This is a view of Soda Butte Creek, near the northeast entrance. Yellowstone National Park covers 2.2 million acres, or 3,468 square miles, mostly in northwest Wyoming, with small amounts in Montana and Idaho. Early morning wisps of fog drape the northeastern part of the park. Lamar Valley and the 40-mile-long Lamar River, a tributary of the Yellowstone. This scene along Tower Creek Trail shows a small portion of the devastation wrought by the 1988 wildfires, which burned 793,880 acres, or 1,243 square miles, that summer. It can be seen in this and the next picture that life in the form of grasses and flowers is slowly returning. Starting in early June, as more than 250 small fires, they quickly merged into a few huge wildfires, fueled by years of drought, a large supply of deadwood, trees whose pitch is highly flammable, and the fire's own furious wind. This was the largest recorded wildfire in the history of the park, affecting 36% of it and forcing the park's closure in early September. 9,000 firefighters failed to control the fires. Later, 4,000 military personnel were added. Colder weather, rain and snow in mid-September slowed the onslaught considerably. The fires were officially declared out on November 18th, after costing the equivalent of $250 million in today's dollars. In this picture, grasses and harebells are growing next to the blackened trunk of a lodgepole pine. Tower Falls plunges 132 feet on Tower Creek, which flows into the Yellowstone River. We're looking at the northern extent of Yellowstone Canyon. The Yellowstone River rises in the Absaroka Range and flows for 692 miles to the upper Missouri River. The high valleys of Yellowstone are about 8,000 feet in elevation and ringed by 10,000-foot mountains, which remain snow-capped all summer. The 109-foot upper falls of the Yellowstone River was formed of a hard, dense, and resistant lava called rhyolite. Immediately downstream of the upper falls is the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone River, formed of soft, hydrothermally altered rhyolite lavas. It is 24 miles long, from 800 to 1,200 feet deep, and 1,500 to 4,000 feet wide. The lower falls is seen in the distance. The lower falls of the Yellowstone River drops 308 feet. The lower falls was formed by the leading edge of the canyon rhyolite lava flow, left side of the falls, and the western edge of the old thermal basin, right side of the falls. The hard lava, dark color, at the brink of the falls resisted erosion, while the altered and weakened lava, light color, of the thermal basin eroded easily. The Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone River and Rainbow, as seen from the brink of the lower falls. Another spectacular view of the canyon from the edge of the lower falls. The present appearance of the canyon dates from about 10,000 years ago, when the last glaciers melted. Very little change has taken place since then. Although most homeowners consider this flower a weed, the humble dandelion, a French word meaning lion's tooth, is a pretty wildflower in Yellowstone. Crystal Falls plunges 129 feet on Cascade Creek. Norris Geyser Basin is the hottest, most volatile geyser basin on this continent, if not in the world. It contains 193 active geysers, such as Steamboat Geyser, the world's tallest active geyser, producing major eruptions to 300 feet high. Major eruptions are rare, often a year or more apart. Minor eruptions like this one send steam and boiling water to about 40 feet. Trees near geothermal areas are killed when coated by calcium carbonate particles, a form of limestone carried aloft by steaming geysers and vents. This is a general view of Porcelain Basin, a part of Norris Geyser Basin, the oldest of Yellowstone's active geyser basins. Norris holds the distinction of having the highest temperature yet recorded in any geothermal area in Yellowstone. At 1,087 feet below the surface, a temperature of 459 degrees Fahrenheit was recorded. The milky coloration of many of these pools is due to their saturation with opalescent silica minerals or clay. Hot spring waters have flowed at Norris for 115,000 years. Many are hot enough to release boiling water. Much of the water is derived from rain and snowmelt. Some pools have orange-rimmed edges. Iron, in combination with other elements, such as arsenic, is responsible for the color bordering some of the springs. For thousands of years, Native Americans have feared the Yellowstone region. The adventurous Jesuit missionary, Father Pierre-Jean de Smet, heard about Yellowstone and reported the Indians' fear of its turbulent spirits, and that they speak of it with a superstition of fear and consider it the abode of evil spirits, that is to say, a kind of hell. De Smet thought Yellowstone a marvelous spot. Some early American trappers called it hell come to the surface of the earth because of the steaming, hissing, and boiling thermal features which release hydrogen sulfide, a gas that smells like rotten eggs. Many thermal features at Norris release acidic water. Hardy primitive plants like lime green cyanidium algae thrive in these hot but not boiling acid waters. Thousands of earthquakes and tremors are recorded each year at Yellowstone. All are capable of upsetting the delicate thermal behavior. Hot springs and geysers can suddenly appear, while others might just as rapidly go dry. Undine Falls plunges nearly 100 feet on Lava Creek. Thank you for viewing Traveling with Glenn. Be sure to tune in to each and every adventure as we tour this fascinating world. Until next time, I wish you happy trails.